I've owned my 2016 Porsche Macan for a few months now, and I'm just now starting to get to the point with this car where there's a few things that are getting under my skin. Generally though, I really love this car and I like it a lot more than I thought I would. But just like with your spouse or loved one, doesn't matter how much you love them, there's gonna be a few things that get under your skin. For example, my wife really hates the fact of how much time I spend staring at my phone. Sometimes she wonders if I like the phone more than I like her. I'm really trying to work on that. But in this video, I'm gonna focus on the Macan and show you all of the things that I don't like about this car. The biggest problem with this car is the center stack right here. There's a shiny piece in the middle that surrounds the gear shift. And when the sun hits it just right, which to me it seems like it happens all the time, the glare off of this is so blinding that I literally have to drive with my hand covering this thing because otherwise it's just too much to handle. I don't think Porsche could have predicted that this piece would cause that problem, but by far it's the most annoying thing about this Macan. Another problem with the design of the center stack with all these buttons and switches is you can't really see the red light. When the sun hits it at just the right angle, you have no idea if it's on or off, so you have to cup your hands around it and see whether or not the switch is pushed in and if the red light is glowing, because that's your only indication. Same thing with this temperature gauge and the AC setting. You can't really see this either when the sun's out, so you have to cup your hands to be able to see what the gauge is actually telling you. So as cool as this design and layout is, it's completely useless when the sun's out. It really becomes a pain in the butt. This car comes with a 3-zone climate control system, so you got vents in the dash, in addition to your footwell vents and your standard cabin vents, but the whole system is problematic. The way the air conditioning is set up in this car, you have these 3 different zones. What happens is you'll push this one, and all of a sudden you'll feel air hitting your feet, or you'll push this one, and then the air conditioning system just gets confused, and the air starts blowing out of all these random areas or just stops blowing completely. So the system, the way it's designed, it's almost too complicated. I don't know if it works a lot better in brand new Macans, but at least in this one, it just doesn't function that well. The other big problem with this Macan is it's actually smaller than I thought it would be. That means that the back seat space is really tight unless I move my seat up forward. And normally in smaller cars like sedans, I always have to pull up my seat so I can give more space to the passengers. I did not expect to do that in this Macan, just because, you know, it's an SUV, so it's supposed to be more practical and more spacious. But this is actually surprisingly cramped back here. And so I find myself constantly having to move the seat up to let passengers feel more comfortable back here. So if you need more space, then just be warned that the Macan is actually a little bit too small. The other thing is there's a noise that comes out of the steering wheel. And this is again something that I check with the dealer on, and this doesn't fall under certified pre-owned warranty. The certified pre-owned warranty, as good as it is, it's never gonna be as good as the factory warranty, so some things they're just not gonna cover. And what they're saying is this is a noise that happens because of a plastic grommet that's presumably worn out in the steering column. And for me to actually fix it, I have to take the whole thing apart, which I definitely don't even wanna get anywhere close to. And if I wanted to get Porsche to do it, they would charge me $500 an hour, so no thanks, I'm just gonna live with this. The problem with this steering wheel and the way the wiper stalk's laid out is it's hidden behind it, so you have to twist the steering wheel over to be able to see it. Now normally this is not a problem. Operating the front wiper is pretty easy and self-explanatory. It's the rear one where it gets challenging because you have off and intermittent and you just don't know exactly which setting to put it in. So when it's hidden behind the steering wheel and you're driving, trying to figure this out and not being able to look at it gets problematic. And so that design really gets on your nerve after some time. This is actually a big problem. So anytime I want to reverse, It takes a long time for this mirror to go down, and I'm almost done reversing by the time it fully goes back down. And then if I go back into drive, it again takes a long time for this thing to go back up again. So this becomes an issue sometimes. The other thing that I don't like is even on the slightest of slopes, it just puts the brake on and it becomes an inconvenience because you're trying to roll forward at a light or something and you have to force down the accelerator more than you would like for the whole thing to go away. So it just becomes an interruption when you don't need it, especially if you're trying to move quickly. I wish the sport mode could stay as default all the time, because if you're not in sport mode, then the whole car becomes laggy and it shifts too quickly. Even at low speeds like 35 miles an hour, it's already shifting up to 6th gear. And the responsive slows down. If you need to floor it and get past somebody, it takes a while to shift down all the gears. So being in sport mode is an absolute must. And besides, it's a Porsche Macan S. You want it in the sports setting with the stiffer suspension and more responsive throttle and handling, because that's what the car is meant for. And having to get in the car and push that button each time, I just wish there was a way to change the default setting and just keep it that way at all times. The interior lighting in the Macan is something that is so underwhelming. It feels like a cheap dollar store, especially at night as you're getting in. There's nothing appealing about the light whatsoever. It's not attractive at all. It just looks bad. Really, that's the way to characterize it. And because this is an older 2016 model, I get it that they don't have a lot of these options. But that's just something, if I could change easily, I would, is just changing the lighting colors and the scheme in the car. So that's pretty much it. It's really not that big of a list of things that I find problematic with the car. It's just those few things that I talked about. In the future, I'll put up more videos of what it's been like to own this thing and drive it on a daily basis, so stay tuned.